Thank you. Appreciate it for asking me. So today, what you want to talk about?
The current events in Afghanistan.
Okay, you want to know how these things are happening in Afghanistan because of this Taliban takeover
Yeah.
recently. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to know the brief history of the Afghanistan in the current political term, we can have to go back to 1974. By then, the Afghanistan was very like a nice country in the sense that the people are having the good time. It was ruled by the monarchy, the Zahir Shah, and even though it was not so much developed, but still it was progressing in current terms. It was developed. It is landlocked country, but even then it was in a non-aligned movement. Even though it was buffer state between these great powers of the Russia and the U.S., it was trying to accommodate those political challenges of the time. Uh, in 1974, the king Zahir Shah went to Italy for his problems with the eyes and some other medical problems. By that time, his own brother-in-law, the Daud Khan, who used to be a prime minister before 10 years back, was trying to capture some power, and that was a good time for him. And with the help of the army and these communists, the PDPA, the communist faction in Afghanistan, in a bloodless coup, seized the power and made the Afghanistan a republic. He tried to make a new constitution in 1970s, tried to make some progress, but he was not so popular, and the communist faction was trying to capture power with the help of the Soviet Union. And then he was killed in a bloody coup in 1978. And now the communists were in power, and after that there was also this power struggle between the different factions of the Afghan Communist Party. Even though they called them as a socialist, they were actually the communists. And the Khalq and the Parcham, there were two major factions. One was more radical and one was more like a liberal. There were a power struggle between them, and the commander also was the president. Tariq was also killed and was substituted by other leaders. And there was a power faction struggle going on.
Yeah.
And for that particular thing, the Soviet Union tried to help them by intervening the Afghanistan in 1979, December, and there was a coup, and he also they killed the president of the Afghanistan and installed their own a favorite one. And all over the world it was denounced because of the military intervention, including Nepal at the time. And because at the time many small countries were fearful about the great power struggles between USSR and USA regarding the communism and the Western democratic system. That was the case. Okay, so that was the culminating point for this current struggle. So, anything you want to know more?
How did the Taliban get formed?
Okay, great. Regarding the birth of the Taliban, we have to go a little back of that particular situation of this Soviet intervention in 1979 in December. And in 1980, many countries, including the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC, and even the United Nations passed a resolution asking USSR to come back from Afghanistan. USSR at the time tried to be there for just 6 months, but over the time period it straight out to be for 9 years. It was there to support this government, and most of the Soviet Union countries, Soviet Union and its bloc were supporting the intervention, but other countries, more than 100 countries, were denouncing it and asking them to come back from Afghanistan. And that particular government tries to enforce very radical reforms in the Afghan context, like making the state and the religion separate entities, land reforms, and even forcing them to have cut their beard no usury, and it became so much a discontinuous issue in the Afghan society that they were trying to revolt, and they were harshly repressed. In one incident, it is said that more than 30,000 prisoners were killed in the prisons. All these opponents, including the Maoists supported by the Chinese and the intelligentsia who were opposing this intervention, were killed. That was the case in those times. And if you think about the current state, you have to go back to the that incident. The USSR was supporting the Soviet Afghan government, but other government like this USA, China, or even countries monarchy were supporting this local population who were very disenchanted with these current reforms, because of this too much like intervention in their daily lives. Many were forced to flee, getting refugee in Pakistan and Iran, and that's how this discontent grown up into the civil war.
So, Mr. Pranjal, would you like to add some on this topic?
No.
Please go ahead if you like.
I'm asking him the questions. So
Okay, what you want to know? So you are talking about.
How,
So you know how these things go.
how did Taliban capture all of Afghanistan so quickly?
Okay, I was telling that story that how this Soviet Union was helping, and then until in 1989, from 1979 to 1989, it was supporting militarily. Afterwards, he removed his army, and that communist government was there until the fall of the Najibullah, the PDPA. They changed the party name even after that one. But once the USA was out of the situation, the Mujahideen, these Islamic factions were fighting among themselves in Afghanistan, a capital for power. So much infighting was there, and people were fed up. And some people from this Kandahar, under the leadership of the Mullah Omar, were trying to have some sort of order in the civil society of Afghanistan. They formed a group called Taliban, which literally means students. They are from the madrasa, the Islamic school, and they try to make some order in the Afghan society through the teachings of this is Quran, in the harsh interpretation of these Islamic teachings.
Sharia?
Sharia, yes. And then they were supported not only by the common folks from this Afghanistan, mostly from the Pashto tribes, but also from the international players like the Pakistan, from where it was supported initially, and also from Qatar and some parts of the Saudi Arabia as well. So they quickly captured the Kandahar area, and then the advances to the capital. And in 1996 they were capturing the capital, and they were ruling for 5 years, from 1996 to 2001, until it was sacked by the US intervention after the fall of the Twin Tower by the Islamic terrorists in New York.
So, did you say why they captured so quickly after the US left?
Yes, because they were there was infighting between the different factions which were supported by the foreign powers, mostly the US and even China and in Pakistan. They were power hungers, like the leaders. They were trying to be like a president, prime minister. They were not taking care of their subjects, but only for themselves. They were fighting. Many people were killed in Afghanistan, particularly in Kabul. There was heavy fighting in 1990s, where thousands of people were killed, but just for their power hunger. So people were fed up. People don't like to live in a harsh situation, so they support Taliban. But once the Taliban in power, they were making banning the girls from going to school. They were banning music, banning other kinds of activity, entertainment activity, forcing people to have a beard. Even these non-religious people from different backgrounds were forced to have this wearing of the turbans or maybe the different religious symbols. And they were even harboring the Al-Qaeda's leader, Osama bin Laden. So that was the major reason behind the attack of the USA in 2001. They were asking to give him the bin Laden to USA, but they were saying that we don't have bin Laden. Even if he was there, we cannot give him because he is taking asylum.
But you didn't mention the current situation now. You were only talking about the past.
Okay, because if you don't know the past, we cannot know about the present. So I'm talking about those things. Okay, now onwards in 2001, they come into Afghanistan with the help of these local opponents of the Taliban people, and then they sacked the government, and they were running here and there, and they fight for several years until 2014. From 2001 to 14, even NATO, several NATO members, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization called NATO, including Canada, Germany, Australia, so many countries were sending armies to subjugate the Taliban for harboring the terrorist activities in Afghanistan. But even then, they were not successful, and they tried to get out from the Afghanistan because it was draining a lot of treasures from their country. So they tried training the Afghan government. Thousands of armies were trained, mercenaries, all those things were there. But even then, they were not successful in quenching the quelling the Taliban, because they were in the rural areas. They were very mobile, and they were actually supported by this local population, mostly the Pashtuns, as well as the Pakistan and some other countries who were not happy with the US presence in Afghanistan. And the Afghan people are very strong in opposing any foreign intervention from a very long time ago. They were fighting with the British India, they were fighting with Russian, and they are now fighting with the USA. So that was the case, and there is a saying that this government they call as a puppet government because of the Western involvement. You pick someone and pick maybe the president or something like that. This is Ashraf Ghani, for example, and people were not dedicated or motivated to fight. So they were quick in getting the capturing the power after the US has a deal with Taliban regarding the withdrawal of their forces from Afghanistan by the September of this 2021.
Okay.
And Mr. Pranjal, we would like to hear something from you also.
So what do you think about this, those kind of, what you will think this, now they have captured the power in Afghanistan, they are in Kabul. What do you think about this Taliban? What do you will think about this issues of these people in Afghanistan? You have seen some videos from the Twitter or other things as well. People are trying to flee the Afghanistan. What do you think?
I think it's very sad because the people, like the government that are supposed to protect them, they left without any hesitation and left all their people to be in control of the Taliban. Even the Afghan government is not willing to fight the Taliban, which gave them easy control of Kabul. And so because of that, many people are trying to rush to other countries, but the Taliban are also blocking borders so they can't escape. And many people are trying to go on US Air Force planes, which caused the deaths of many people, and many people were trying to get in while it was moving. And it's overall a very sad situation seeing Kabul be like this again after 20 years. There will be a lot of bloodshed and not good things happening.
Okay, so some people are blaming the Biden administration for his quick decision of removing of these US troops from the Afghanistan. What do you think about that?
I think that he's both right and wrong, because he said if the Afghan government won't fight them, then why should they fight them? But the thing was that the US got them into war in the first place, and also they pulled so quickly, and after 20 years of fighting and so many soldier loss and so many families without like brothers, fathers, mothers, sisters, all gone, all that work gone to waste, and just because Biden said to get out of Afghanistan so quickly. But then again, it's also nice that the soldiers can reunite with their families again.
Okay, so in the pro and cons of this withdrawal, we can see that in some way it is good for US, but in the same time it is not good for the Afghan folks. Yeah. So now you have seen some photos and the videos that now they have like even painted this the colors on the models and the shops, like these beauty shops and something like that. So how do you perceive the next move by this Taliban regarding the rights of the women and even the minorities like this, maybe Hindus, Sikhs, or even Christians or whatsoever, even the Shia people? What do you think? How they will be treated?
The women will probably be forced to leave their like colleges, school, university. They'll have to stay inside all the time, and they can only go outside with a male person with them, and they have to be wearing niqabs if they, even if they don't want to wear niqabs, and they're not allowed to do things like drive, can't go to the store themselves, and they can't go to beauty parlors, and the Taliban are also censoring pictures of women without the niqab or with full hair showing on like beauty parlors. And for the minorities, they'll probably be persecuted, probably be tortured in jail, forced to convert, or even just be shot immediately. So I don't think it's a very fair situation for both both parties.
Okay, so in that particular sense, it's a very like how the things can change within a short time if the government is not working hard for the people. They are supposed to do like the duties. They are supposed to make the duties. So now I think the Afghanistan is going to backward, not forward, because these people are fundamentally trained in the madrasa without having the broad vision of the development. They think that that is not the as per with the teachings of Islam, and I am very sorry to see that the people are desperate to flee from the country just to have some sort of liberties. I have some friends from Afghanistan who were saying me a long time before that if they were there in Afghanistan, they might be tortured or even killed. Before that, like you have seen some of the female reporters were killed just because they were doing the jobs in the outside field, particularly media. They don't like that kind of things to be taken by the women in particular. So I think I'm very sorry that these ladies we are getting some sort of liberties and freedom for the last 20 years, now in vain. So we might take a lesson from the Afghanistan that if a small nation which is not so strong in the sense of the diplomacy or the short-sighted leaders, the country can be turned into a chaotic killing place, as in Afghanistan or in the case of the Cambodia. So the country like Nepal or any of the countries which are very weak and are in a very specific geographic location for the great powers should be very cautious in letting them come into their politics internally and making the field killing ground. What do you think?
I think that for countries such as like Nepal, Afghanistan, you know, the ones border between multiple economic and military giants, they should be wary to not let foreign powers get into their internal politics, because we've seen before, if any side, either power gets a chance, they'll easily overthrow the government or in place a government of their choice to have rules that their country has. Like if China gets a power, then they'll make it a communist nation, or if US gets power, they'll make it a hyper-capitalist nation, which I don't think is good. Unless the country is in very dire position, only then a foreign power should mingle with the politics.
So there should be some sort of like a cooperation between the locals and the foreign if it wants to get some sort of the politics involved. Otherwise, it is better to be non-aligned just to make sure that the country is not a playground for these powers, making their lives more difficult and generations lost, like as in the case of Afghanistan. Yeah, the Cambodia recently get back into track because they revert back to the monarchy after several decades. It is very difficult once the things are not in your control. Yeah. So you can see from this perspective of the Afghanistan. So in the next episode we'll talk about something interesting.
Okay.
Is that good, Pranjal?
Okay.
Thank you for having me in this show. Thank you, and very loving time with you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.